In the first part of this video, we saw that Ethan, along with Benji, successfully retrieves the key to the source code of the AI defense system known as the Entity after snatching it from Gabriel. Knowing that no one can control the Entity, Ethan cuts off contact with everyone. But in the process, Ilsa is killed. Months later, the President of the United States learns about the situation and sends a recorded message to Ethan. She reveals that the Entity has spread false information globally, creating chaos in cyberspace. As a result, nations are on the brink of nuclear war. Meanwhile, certain extremist groups who believe in the Entity's ideology are trying to help fulfill its destructive mission. Erica explains that in order to stop the Entity, they must access its source code. The only person who might know the location is Gabriel, but the Entity has erased all evidence that could lead to it. However, Australian authorities have captured Gabriel's companion, Paris. Erica requests the key from Ethan to prevent a global war. Understanding the urgency, Ethan reconnects with Benji and Luther and infiltrates an Austrian prison to free Paris. Inside, Ethan helps Benji render Agent Jasper unconscious and convinces another agent, Degas, that he's trying to save the world. In return for sparing her life, Paris tells Ethan the possible location of Gabriel. So, Ethan and his team head to the US Embassy in London to capture him. But two IMF agents recognize Ethan. Before they can alert others, Grace quickly disarms them. Ethan knocks them out, and Grace asks what the next step is. Before they can act, two unknown operatives inject Ethan and Grace with a sedative and capture them. When Ethan regains consciousness, Gabriel appears. He reminds Ethan of a time when a man named David had kidnapped his wife Julia, and to save her, Ethan had stolen an incomplete prototype weapon from a Shanghai lab called the Rabbit's Foot. That prototype, as it turns out, is now what we know as the Entity. It becomes clear Ethan unknowingly brought the Entity into existence. Gabriel offers a deal. If Ethan retrieves the source code from the Sevastapole submarine, he'll spare Grace's life. Ethan and Grace realize that the Entity has abandoned Gabriel due to his failure to obtain the key, and now Gabriel is desperate to control it again. Knowing that only he can reach the source code, Ethan threatens Gabriel by biting into a cyanide capsule, saying he'll kill himself if Grace isn't released. Gabriel, startled, frees him, but Ethan had actually taken a heat capsule, not cyanide. He fights off Gabriel's men and rescues Grace. As Gabriel attempts to retrieve a chamber from his locker, the system locks him out. Paris explains that Gabriel used to communicate with the Entity using that chamber. Then, something strange happens. As Ethan approaches, the chamber and its box unlock by themselves. The Entity wants to communicate with him. Ethan lies inside the box. The Entity connects to his mind and scans his entire past. It reveals that Luther has created a program called the Poison Pill, a virus capable of destroying the Entity if it is uploaded to the source code. Ethan sees a possible future where Gabriel himself destroys the Entity. The Entity then shows Ethan a secure underground bunker in Africa known as the Doomsday Vault, protected by an electronic shield that even the Entity cannot breach. It contains all of humanity's knowledge, and the Entity plans to preserve itself there for thousands of years. It gives Ethan a choice: either let the world be destroyed or hand over the world to the Entity and allow it to govern humanity. The Entity then shows a vision of a grim future: Luther's death at the hands of Gabriel, followed by a space war that destroys Earth in 3 days. Ethan exits the chamber and immediately informs his team that they must travel north to find the coordinates of the solar system. He instructs Benji to locate a source station to transmit the coordinates and emphasizes that they'll need a plane without GPS, so the Entity cannot track them. Ethan rushes to save Luther. But before he arrives, Gabriel takes the poison pill program from Luther and escapes, leaving behind a chain reaction bomb. When Ethan arrives, Luther warns that the bomb is powerful enough to destroy the entire city. Luther urges Ethan to escape with the poison pill drive, saying that the bomb can't be stopped, only contained, and if Ethan dies, so does humanity's last hope. He forces Ethan out of the tunnel before the blast. Ethan surrenders to Jasper and hands over the key. Jasper brings him to the US Emergency Command Center, where he meets CIA Director Eugene. Eugene explains that the Entity has now taken over the weapon systems of multiple nations. Ethan then meets the Madam President. He requests the key and an aircraft carrier to reach the Entity. When no one agrees, Ethan warns that the Entity has already seized control of most of the US nuclear systems and will provoke a global war unless it is stopped. He asks for just 3 days. The Madam President appears to reject his request and orders his arrest. But secretly, she slips him a classified letter along with the key. She does this quietly to avoid conflict with military leaders. Outside, a soldier gives the president's letter to Navy Admiral Neely and drops Ethan onto the battlefield of Carrier Strike Group X in the Northern Pacific. Admiral Neely reads the letter. It contains only one date, May 22, 1906. Neely realizes it's a reference to a moment from his past and understands the hidden message. He must trust Ethan. Meanwhile, the president explains that SOSUS, the sound surveillance system, records all major underwater activity. These stations are located all over the world. The submarine crew's bodies were recovered near St. Matthew's Island in the Bering Sea, where a SOSUS station is also located. Neely warns Ethan that the area is under heavy Russian military surveillance and stepping into it could ignite World War III. She also tells him that if the exact coordinates are found, they'll need a submarine to reach them safely, bypassing the Russian Navy. When Neely asks how Ethan plans to get out of Sevastapole, he explains that he'll carry a transmitter, and his team will track his location, cut through the ice, and pull him out. But the chances of survival are slim. Hypothermia in the icy waters is almost certain. On top of that, there's only one nearby submarine, and Neely will have to send a message, hoping they receive and respond. Even then, Ethan would only have 30 seconds to be rescued before he freezes to death. Despite the odds, Ethan insists on going. Neely gives him her locket as a token and sends him toward the submarine's location via helicopter. But as he arrives, a Russian fighter jet intercepts and warns him off. With no choice, Ethan dives into the freezing sea to distract the jet and protect the pilots who manage to escape. Meanwhile, Benji, Grace, and the others reach the St. Matthew's social station where they find Donalo, the same man who once designed the world's most secure black vault. Benji hides the fact that Ethan had previously infiltrated that vault, which cost Donalo his reputation and career. Grace asks Donalo to check all the station's data. Suddenly, Russian soldiers surround them. Back in the ocean, Ethan begins to lose consciousness from hypothermia. Just in time, two divers rescue him. They had received Neely's message. On board the submarine, Ethan hands over Neely's locket to the captain and asks him to take them north, where a signal will transmit coordinates. But raising the submarine is risky, as it could expose their position to the Russians. While strategizing, Ethan and the captain discover that a Russian submarine is stationed at St. Matthew, possibly holding Ethan's team hostage. Donalo reveals that the station's backup data is stored on old floppy disks, but the reader isn't available. A Russian officer gives him 1 hour to build a reader. Secretly, Donalo confides in Benji that the coordinates aren't on the floppies. He's memorized them. He writes them on a paper, hides it in his watch, and sends his wife out with Grace under the pretense of feeding the dogs. In the submarine, Ethan is prepped in an advanced pressure suit to withstand the deep-sea pressure. He practices breathing to prepare for high-pressure nervous syndrome. Suddenly, a crew member, corrupted by the entity, attacks Ethan. Another teammate saves him just in time. At the station, the Russian soldiers confront Ethan's team, and chaos breaks out. A fire erupts in Donalo's home. Still, Donalo transmits the coordinates before he dies. When Ethan receives them, the captain realizes the coordinates are on the opposite side of the world. Ethan rotates the map, revealing the real location. Ethan devises a plan. The submarine will distract the Russian one by moving away, giving Ethan a chance to exit and head to the coordinates. He's equipped with a tracker and lowered into the sea. Deep underwater, he finds the Sevastapole submarine, enters the decompression chamber, and reaches the sonar spare room to retrieve the entity's source code. But pressure builds, the sub starts flooding, and he gets stuck. He cuts free of his suit, releases his oxygen, and escapes, but passes out from hypothermia. Grace, waiting for him, pulls him up, gives CPR, and revives him. Later, the team heads to the Doomsday Bunker in South Africa. The final battlefield. Ethan knows Gabriel will try to upload the poison pill to control the entity. Benji explains the entity won't be tricked by a regular server. Instead, they must use a 5D optical data device, which will trap the entity if they pull it at precisely the right moment, within 1/100th of a second. If they're early, it fails. If they're late, the entity launches a nuclear missile. Ethan says Gabriel's plan to upload the code is inevitable. It must happen. He gives Grace the job of pulling the drive at the perfect moment to save the world. The team infiltrates the bunker. Ethan sees that Gabriel has planted a massive nuclear bomb near the server room. Just as he's about to hand the source code to Gabriel, Agent Jasper turns on Gabriel at gunpoint. As chaos breaks out, Gabriel's man activates the bomb timer. Just then, CIA Director Eugene arrives with Agent Jasper, takes the source code from Ethan, and demands to know Ethan's plan. Ethan pleads with Eugene to let Gabriel have the source code because giving it to him is the only way to trap the entity later. But Eugene doesn't understand and refuses to cooperate. Gabriel seizes the moment. He fires at his own men, escapes in a car, and speeds away. Benji quickly tells Ethan to go after him and retrieve the poison pill. As Ethan runs off, Grace sees Benji has been shot. Ethan chases Gabriel through a tunnel trying to catch up, but Gabriel boards a small analog escape plane. As it lifts off, another plane follows. Ethan catches up, jumps onto Gabriel's plane, throws the pilot out, and takes control himself. Back in the bunker, Donalo, his wife, and Dega work to halt the nuclear reaction of the bomb. They know they won't survive, but proceed anyway. Donalo tells Grace, Benji, and Paris to head to the server room and finish their mission. Benji's condition worsens upon reaching the server room. The pressure on his body is triggering a possible heart attack. Paris cuts into his chest, relieving the pressure and saving him. Before Grace activates the system receiver, Benji makes some last-minute modifications to the server panel. Meanwhile, Donalo finds a way to extend the bomb's 10-second timer, giving the trio enough time to escape and complete their task. Elsewhere, at the Emergency Control Center, the leaders realize the entity has hijacked all nuclear missiles except for their own. In desperation, they decide to sacrifice 100 million lives to save the remaining 7 billion by launching their own nuclear strike. Just as Madam President is about to launch, she pauses, then chooses to trust Ethan. She cancels the missile launch, but at that moment, a security guard shoots her. General Sidney jumps in front, sacrificing himself to save her. In the chaos, the entity takes full control of the world's nuclear arsenals and begins fueling missiles in every country for a global attack. Back in the server room, Grace activates the receiver. Now, they wait for Ethan to insert the poison pill into the source code. High in the sky, Ethan battles Gabriel aboard the plane. He breaks Gabriel's hand, grabs the poison pill, and unbuckles his seatbelt. Gabriel is forced to jump out with a parachute, but hits a metal platform, fatally smashing his skull. Ethan also jumps, but his glider catches fire. Falling fast, he manages to insert the poison pill into the source code just in time and deploys his backup parachute. Just 2 seconds before detonation, the receiver's light turns green. Grace triggers the optical data trap, separating the entity from all nuclear control. At the same time, the bunker explodes, plunging the world into a momentary blackout, but it worked. The entity is now trapped in a 5D optical device. Moments later, power is restored across the globe. The world is safe again, and news breaks that Ethan has succeeded. Later, Ethan receives a pre-recorded message from Luther, who says he always believed Ethan was meant to save the world. As the message ends, the source code device self-destructs. Ethan hands over the burnt device and remnants of the code to Eugene. Finally, the whole team reunites in London. They go their separate ways, knowing their mission is complete. And the best part? Benji survives. The story ends here. The world saved, but only just.